martial arts, one of anime's most satisfying and grounded types of combat. We've seen time and time again that despite the lack of magic spams or anything of that nature, a good old hand-to-hand fight scene will always reign supreme when it comes to showcasing skill and mastery, which makes it the perfect vessel for some badass flexing, while adding magic and the likes to it only elevates the martial arts element. So I present to you the best martial arts flexes in anime. Let's get right to it. If we're talking about flexing, then this fight scene definitely takes the cake. A one-sided beatdown that gave Shunsui zero chance to even retaliate. You couldn't even call this a fight at this point due to the gap in both strength and skill amongst the two competitors. The fight started with Shunsui charging towards his imminent defeat, seemingly filled with vigor and energy, and opening with a strong left punch which Baki easily dodges. The events that followed this was nothing short of a flex as Baki strikes Shunsui's chin with perfect accuracy, rambling his brain like a pinball game, followed by a left uppercut as if the first punch wasn't enough to knock him out in the first place. And that's not all, as this final strike was definitely the last nail in the coffin as Baki hits him square in the jaw with a powerful roundhouse kick, sending him, as the narrator would put it, in a world far, far away. The fight ended with Baki not breaking a single sweat and with his opponent unconscious on the floor. If that's not called flexing, then I don't know what is. Next up on this list, we have one of the most satisfying beatdowns in the series, Takamura vs Hawks. The match started with Hawks gaining the upper hand as Takamura was struggling to keep up with Hawks' unorthodox way of boxing, even losing consciousness for a bit, only barely waking up again to dodge a devastating blow that was headed his way. The match went on with Hawks at an advantage, but it all changed when Takamura lost consciousness. He recalled memories of what happened before the match, which made him snap and retaliated with a flurry of punches fueled by his anger of Hawks. The match was then concluded on round 8 as Takamura's momentum from the previous round just kept on going, eventually resulting in a standing count and Hawks losing the ability to keep on going. But the flex didn't end there, seeing as Takamura literally beat this guy so hard he later developed PTSD, breaking down just with the slight mention of Takamura's name. Just cares to show how much of a beast Takamura really is. This one here is surely one of the most unexpected fights in the series. Seeing as Rihito, a pre-established character in the series mind you, went up against Gensei, a character that the viewers don't even know much of, seeing as this was his debut in the anime. The match was basically a lecture for Rihito, seeing as Gensei could have easily taken him out of the match if he took him seriously, landing several lethal blows and exclaiming how he could have killed him in those moments was a flex in and of itself. But the fact that he's practically schooling him while he's doing it is what elevates this flex more, pointing out his flaws not only in skill, but in his character. The match was basically over when Gensei did a proper fighting stance, dodging Rihito's slashes and landing a devastating blow to his chest and arm, ending it all with a solid punch to the face. Rihito was just out of luck in this scenario, seeing as he was facing the final boss in the first match. Gensei also didn't look down on the mocked Rihito for his inadequacies, as he didn't mean to humiliate him in the whole match. Flexing while being humble and compassionate is something that we don't really see much in anime, and this fight managed to do that perfectly. The most recent anime on this list, we have Hell's Paradise with Gabimaru the Hollow himself. The anime just started and we're already blessed with a fight scene that's so accurate to its source material, which is always a promising start. The scene truly highlighted Gabimaru's ferocity and wild style of fighting as he rips and bites his enemies as if he's wielding a blade. Some are even decapitated, which are displayed in a gruesome manner in the show. He instilled fear not only in his opponents but also to the onlookers that were present at the scene, and he did all of this while his hands were restrained, making you wonder how deadly this shinobi would be if he were to fight with any handicaps. You should also keep in mind he didn't use any ninjutsu in this fight. His opponents weren't that weak either, seeing as they were one of Japan's most horrid and infamous criminals, which means they themselves are also capable of violence, but the thing that separates them from Gabimaru is none other than skill, and oh boy was that displayed. It only feels right if we include some classic anime in this list. So next up we have Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro vs. Heart. The next Flex victim we have is Heart, one of the 4 chief vassals of the King organization, a formidable opponent that mostly negates blunt force-based attacks due to his physique, which makes him a direct counter to most martial arts techniques. One might think that Kenshiro would have a relatively hard time against this type of opponent. Well, you guessed wrong. The fight opened with Kenshiro failing his first attempt in killing this massive obstacle due to his massive blubber. With his hand stuck, Heart delivered a massive counterattack which forced Kenshiro onto the ground. After recovering from the attack, Kenshiro unleashed a flurry of attacks and finished it off with a direct attack in the now vulnerable stomach, blowing up his entire body in the process, turning him into red mist. The Flex that is his partner Ray could have handled the situation due to his attacks focusing more on slicing as opposed to blunt attacks, but Kenshiro just had to deny his request and take care of it himself. All for the Flex, I suppose. After Takemichi endured the beatdown that he received from Daiju, Mikey makes his entrance in the church with the usual carefree attitude that we love from him, of course. Daiju managed to land the first hit on him, seemingly knocking Mikey out cold, only for him to stand back up and say that it was punishment for himself, implying that he took the punch head on without the intention of even blocking it in the first place. Mikey's cold stare alone shows how much he means business in this moment, and the following sequence of events showed that. As Mikey smashes Daiju on the floor with an attack that we didn't even get to see due to its immense speed, and remember this was after Daiju got an extensive flashback that shows his insane strength, and Mikey just dropped him within 1 frame. And here I thought flashbacks make you stronger, but Mikey wasn't even the only one flexing in this scenario, seeing as Draken just off-screened all the Black Dragon members by himself, might I add. The moment these two stepped in, the fight was already a wrap.
Huh?
Next up we have Naruto, Rock Lee vs Gaara, a fan favourite fight scene where 2 competitors with highly different fighting styles going toe to toe against each other. Rock Lee specialises in Taijutsu, whereas Gaara focuses more on ninjutsu, 2 highly different people not only in their preferred fighting style but also in their personality. The one thing that sets this fight apart is none other than Rock Lee finally showing everyone the fruits of his labour and hard work. And of course, we must mention the iconic weight removal scene. An iconic flex that shows how much of a beast Rock Lee is in close quarters combat, which is shown in how much he overpowered Gaara after removing his weights, moving at such high speed that he only appears like a blur to the audience, to a point that even Gaara couldn't keep up with him. Yeah, he did lose, but it was only by a close margin. Had it been anyone else, Rock Lee would have easily won. But Rock Lee's immense show of power is impressive enough on its own. After all, opening 5 inner gates as a genin is something only prodigies are capable of. Next is this fight from Hitori no Shita. If we're talking about flexing and martial arts, then this scene deserves to be in it, no questions asked. The choreography mixed with the stellar and fluid animation is so out of this world, you can hardly follow the moves that these guys were pulling. This was all made possible due to the collaboration of both Chinese and Japanese studios. An insane opener for the series season 3 where we're straight up introduced to a hype chase/fight scene, which was intense from start to finish, and the intensity only grows as the fight progresses. A definite flex in my opinion. The fight then ends when he sends his final opponent flying with a single punch straight into a river. A scene that 100% deserves to be on this list. We've finally reached the end, and we have the main antagonist in the Dark Tournament, none other than Toguro, one of Yusuke's arch nemesis. The entire fight with Yusuke was basically himself always at a disadvantage, and whenever he manages to one-up Toguro, he he simply only increases his power level, and that cycle repeats. A total monster not only in strength, but also appearance, as he physically deforms the more his output of power increases, which only makes him more menacing. His power output control is also a perfect vessel in making him the ultimate "this isn't even my full strength" stereotypical anime character, which does make for a tense fight. As he slowly increases in power, he leaves us to wonder if Yusuke could even beat such a monster. When Dogoro finally deemed Yusuke worthy, he unleashes 100% of his power, which turned him into a hulking mass of a monster, which is just 100% muscle, turning even just the flick of his finger equivalent to that of a normal punch. A total menace that kept the audience and participants on their toes. His existence in the tournament was a flex itself, showing the great gap in strength which worked wonders in keeping up the suspense and hype in the arc. And that's the end of the video. With so many characters mainly utilizing martial arts, this list was a blast to make, and I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and maybe give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching this video.